welcome to our crib. We did not know this was going to be a shared home, but that's okay. Oh my gosh, there's a mirror. We have our bed. We have our TV with our Netflix. We have our Dan. We have our table with our snacks. We got fruit for breakfast tomorrow, and we got stuff to make curry. Ignore all the plastic because there's not really any vegan options on this island. That's it for in here. Out here's the kitchen. Oh, also, they're growing lemongrass, lots and lots of basil, and some peppers, and then some oregano over there. Quick tour. I'll probably do a more in-depth tour this evening as we cook dinner, but also as we stay in this lovely Airbnb, I'd like to do a video about how sustainable Airbnbs are and how you can make them even more sustainable as an eco-friendly tourist/traveler, and also spill some tea on Airbnb, so stay tuned. Forgot the most important part of the house tour is Heidi. Say hello, Heidi. And apparently we're only like 50 meters from the beach, so we're gonna go check out the beach real quick. Like I said, I want to talk about the sustainability of Airbnbs, how sustainable how unsustainable they are. I did a similar video in February when we went to Takayama. In that video, I explored the environmental impact of hostels versus hotels, because that was when we stayed in our first hostel. Now, this isn't our first Airbnb. This is the first time I've had this idea to explore how sustainable really are Airbnbs. First, I'd like to touch on the things that they are doing right. So first, looking at things like physical waste, electricity, water usage, it is so much less than hotels or other popular types of accommodation. Airbnbs clearly win there. They're a lot more sustainable in that way. It has been proven that 88% of Airbnb hosts incorporate some sort of green practices into their homes. A 2018 study found that when guests stay in Airbnbs, significantly less water and energy are used, fewer greenhouse gas emissions are present, and physical waste is less too, in comparison to hotel guests. But this is something that I would want to consider with this statistic as well. Is that just because when an eco-friendly person is traveling, they choose Airbnbs over hotels? And when a wasteful person chooses to travel, do they choose a hotel over Airbnbs? Or are they looking at similar demographics? So that's something that I think needs to be considered as well with these numbers, because more than likely it's the former. It's eco-friendly people staying in Airbnbs and wasteful people staying in hotels, because those are the things those two types of people prefer. 66% of Airbnb guests actually say that having environmental benefits in their home, it helps them choose their accommodation over another one. The equivalent of 826,000 homes is how much Airbnb has saved in energy in 2017 in Europe. And this is most likely due to the amount of energy that hotels consume, with things like a dining area, a gym, a pool, having their lights on constantly, and other things like that really make hotels super wasteful, and Airbnbs much more eco-friendly in comparison. Airbnb even took a sustainability initiative in which they created a website and put up a bunch of training videos for their hosts in order for their hosts to incorporate more green practices into their homes. This also is to help guests choose more eco-friendly accommodations in the first place. They encourage their guests to compost, encourage their guests and hosts to reduce their carbon footprint as a whole. In general, Airbnb just seems to want to be pushing more for climate activism. Airbnb not only helps their hosts, but they also require them to meet minimum standards when it comes to sustainability. And of course, all sources will be linked down below as usual.
Yesterday, there was sun and there was rain, beauty in the mundane. And as the light startled our eyes, we let go of disguise.
made dinner, and we ate dinner, and we hung in the hammocks. Just like when you're looking at any sort of environmental standard, environmental technique, you want to ask yourself, is it greenwashing? And when it comes to Airbnb, it might be. Are they just striving to be more eco-friendly in general, or are they striving for sustainability across the board? And that's not just when it comes to the environment. Though Airbnbs are certainly better than hotels and resorts, they still aren't the best option. We'll get into that later, so be sure to stay tuned till the end to see what we can do as consumers to help lessen our carbon footprint when it comes to traveling and staying in hotels, Airbnbs, and the like. Ultimately, with Airbnb, it comes down to where you're staying. Here on Ishigaki, it's not a very popular tourist destination. Plus, this one, our hosts are living upstairs, so living in an Airbnb where you're actually sharing it with your host is so much more sustainable than someone purchasing a home just to list on Airbnb. And some big companies and corporations do this as well, and that is so unsustainable. So here in Ishigaki and other non-common tourist destinations, the locals still have a great quality of life. Their rent isn't jacked up from the increased tourist/increased Airbnbs. There's not a lot of over-tourism. There's not a lot of physical pollution, light pollution, noise pollution, all that sort of stuff. You can start to see that stuff with resorts, hotels, and even big Airbnb hotspots, if you will. Places like remote stays, local villages, and like the one we're in, where you're home sharing with your host, are so much better when it comes to environmental standards. Oh my gosh! Hi, Heidi! Hi, girl! I love Heidi. Places like this can help boost local tourism in a sustainable way. It can help the locals make a little extra money in smaller, locally owned accommodations like this, and places where the hosts only have one accommodation. It's things like when hosts have multiple accommodations, and I'm not just talking like 2 or 3 or 4, I'm talking like dozens. And also when big companies come in and swoop up these properties and turn them into Airbnbs instead of allowing the locals to live in their own homes. A lot of this actually has a very negative impact on the locals and can actually drive them out of their cities and local areas where they are staying, because the prices of rent just get jacked up way too high with the competition from Airbnb. So this issue particularly arises when you're traveling to places like Greece and Barcelona and even Okinawa Honto, the main island of Okinawa. That is when you see a lot of this issue. And sure, the Airbnbs themselves might be environmentally sustainable, but it's not sustainable for the local economy, and that needs to be put into perspective as well. It does have environmental impacts in the long run, and what I mean is that more Airbnbs equals more tourists. More tourists equals more pollution and that sort of stuff. And again, if you missed my first video on over-tourism, you can check that out up here. In that, I talk about what over-tourism is and what we can do to combat it. And one of those is to just simply not travel to over-touristy destinations. And if you have to, don't contribute to this sort of stuff if you can help it. Airbnb is actually one of the largest booking sites. In 2019 alone, Airbnb had 91 million booked nights in just 1 year. That's more than Expedia. But like I mentioned, not all of these Airbnbs are run by individuals. Sure, a good majority of them are, and you'll actually see your host when you arrive, but a lot of them, your host either owns multiple properties, or they're actually run by big companies. I've even seen this in Okinawa myself. Military moves in and out of houses very fast, very frequently. Airbnb and other tourism companies have caught on to this. I have literally talked to people who have almost lost the apartment that they're looking for because of Airbnb. And because Airbnb is buying up so many properties close to military bases, this affects military families. Even locals are seeing this problem as well, because if military is seeing it, clearly the locals are seeing it. And that means that locals can no longer live there. They can't afford it, as well as there's not going to be even any room left for the locals. And this isn't just corporations either. This can be individuals too, buying a property just to put it up on Airbnb. In fact, 81% of the US revenue for Airbnb comes from whole home rentals. Things not like the one we are staying in now, which is a shared home, or other things like hostels and apartments and things like that. It is the whole home rentals that are truly the least environmentally friendly, as well as least sustainable when it comes to the economic viewpoint as well. In Venice and Barcelona, nearly 70% of hosts have multiple listings, and in LA, it's nearly 60%. So is Airbnb holding these companies and individuals with multiple bookings to the same environmental standards as they're holding individuals with just 1 or 2 bookings? And by bookings, I mean listings. So basically what I'm getting at is Airbnb worth it for the environmental standards if it's also hurting the locals? And I guess maybe that's something you have to question yourself morally. Personally, I think that staying in an Airbnb somewhere like rural Utah or rural Canada or rural Okinawa, Japan, I don't think it's that bad on the economy. But again, you have to dig into your hosts, you have to dig into the companies and the areas and stuff like that. So staying in shared homes like the one that we're staying in, or staying in non-touristy areas, is definitely the most environmentally friendly way to travel, especially when it comes to Airbnb. It's when you get into those over touristy areas when Airbnb can really hurt locals when it comes to rent prices and things like that. So if you're staying in larger cities and over touristy areas, Airbnb might not actually be the best choice. It might be things like hostels. Those are probably the most environmentally friendly option across the board, but especially in larger cities, unless it's also run by Airbnb. And of course, over-tourism hurts locals in more ways than just rent, and I really encourage you to check out the first video I made about over-tourism to learn more about that. And like I kind of mentioned earlier, Airbnb is one of the largest contributors to over-tourism, because more Airbnbs equals more stays equals more people staying in those areas, which drives up over-tourism. When unregulated, over-tourism can kill places like Venice and even Okinawa mainland, like we have seen in the past couple years. And in places like that, Airbnb listings can actually lead to less locals living in those areas. It's still a great site, and I think it can be used in a great way, but you just have to be wise about your choices and actually look into the bookings that you're trying to choose for your accommodation. Don't just pick whatever you want willy-nilly. That kind of comes with everything in the zero-waste environmentalism movement and community. You really have to do some research before making your final decision to be sure that you're being the most environmentally friendly, but also looking out for the people in those areas. Some Airbnbs actually even have environmental ratings, so be sure to look at those if they have that available, and just try your best not to contribute to over-tourism. I'm not saying Airbnb is bad, but just be wise when using it. And actually, there's even a better booking site. I just found out about this when I was doing my research, unfortunately after we booked this place, but it is called bookdifferent.com, and I'm pretty sure it's like a sustainable version of Airbnb, which is pretty cool. Ultimately, it's up to personal choice. When staying on a semi-remote island, I'll choose Airbnb any day over a hotel or a resort, but when staying in a bigger city, I would try to find a hostel moving forward. So what else can you do as Airbnb users? You can do stuff like tell them what you think. You get a survey at the end of each of your stays, so give them your honest opinion about your stay and if it can be improved in any ways. You can even write them, you can email them, whatever you want to do to get your message across. Also, by supporting local hosts who only have 1 or 2 listings versus people who have multiple listings, and versus supporting those companies, that really makes a big difference too. And of course, Airbnb will look at those analytics, and if they're seeing that more people are staying in smaller owned accommodations, they might encourage that in the future. Of course, staying in home sharing options like the one that we are in, or staying in a hostel sort of place, is great too, because that means someone's not just buying a property to throw up on Airbnb, they're actually renting out a space that they already have. I hope this video was informative and gives you some more information on moving forward when it comes to your accommodation and travel in the future. So they're not great, but they're also not the worst. I'm not trying to trash Airbnb. I hope you enjoy the rest of this trip with us. We're having a great time so far.
If I can find the lens cap.
Oh, it's in my pocket.
Oh.
What else? Tonight we're gonna go see a lighthouse and then
Shoot the Milky Way.
shoot the Milky Way tonight. I gotta stay up past my bedtime.
For better days to come and carry us like wind in our sails. Hold on tight, I can smell the shore, it's right in front of us. If we just hold on tight, this vision that I saw is getting closer every dawn. We are dreamers of the shore. 7 years now on this boat, and we all know it's right in front of us if we just hold on tight. This vision that I saw is getting closer every dawn. We are dreamers of the shore when we can't read the sky. We just sail with the wind that we've got. And when we're drowning in doubt, just keep on believing.
So I can take the pineapple? I'm gonna try. Okay, so we literally have the sweetest toasts in the world. I have no hands right now. He brought us several different kinds of tea that they have growing here. Fresh pineapple and some special Okinawa peppers as like a parting gift. Literally so sweet. But I'm like, how am I gonna get a pineapple through security? But Dan thinks that we can take a pineapple through domestic security. So we're gonna try it. Try to take all these goodies back to the main island. See how that goes. But if you ever want to come to Ishigaki, we recommend you stay here. This village, this house, these hosts are all awesome. I'm gonna be so impressed if Japanese security lets us get through with that. Oh, also I have one more thing to put in there. The paintings from the other day. Our new friend Hideo painted this of the mountain that we climbed, and he ripped it out and gave it to us. And then while we were up there, he drew us. That's a really bad angle. I'll get a better angle, but he was just so nice. And between my broken Japanese and his broken English, we had a pretty good conversation. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video, this Airbnb tour. We had an absolutely lovely stay. We really enjoyed our first experience in a shared home, and we both agreed that we would love to do a shared home again. It was just a lot of fun to actually get to interact with local people. I also wanted to tell you that we are starting our own channel.
Ta-da!
Ta-da! I don't know if this video is gonna go up first or the other video on our new channel is gonna go up first. But either way, I guess I'll go ahead and create the channel. We're just gonna be
So creative.
Emma and Dan. So go and subscribe over there. That channel is gonna be mostly focused on our travels and our big future plans that we probably won't announce for 3 years. But anyways, we already have our whole future of this new channel planned out, even though it's not even been born yet. If you wanna follow along on that journey, be sure to subscribe to that.
It's gonna be lit.
It's gonna be lit. It's gonna be a really good time. It's gonna be a long time coming, but it's gonna be a good time once we get there. And that's all I have for this video. I hope you enjoyed the rest of our Ishigaki travels, which will be posted on that new channel, because I'm trying to keep this channel focused on environmentalism, zero waste, and I don't want to do random travel videos because that doesn't make much sense. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, don't forget to hit the thumbs up, subscribe if you're new here, and until next time, remember that these small changes you make have a big impact in the long run. Bye guys. You weren't even in that. I think I was blocking you. The pineapples made it through, but we almost lost our camera batteries.
The drone battery.
The drone batteries. Thought we were gonna have to check our bag to get our drone batteries home, but our pineapple made it.